So we went to the hospital. We walked into the waiting room. There was about between 40 and 50 people in there. It's fairly large. And I thought, looking around the room, my intuition said, oh, between 4 and 7 hour wait, most likely. Well, this was about 3:30, somewhere in there in the afternoon. And so what happened over the next several hours was there was quite a few emergencies and ambulances coming in regularly with people who were mostly unconscious or were on IVs and plugged in with tubes, and they were on gurneys. And it was like being inside of one of those hospital TV series, watching all the first responders and the police coming and going with the gurneys. So that really slowed down all the walk-in traffic. It slowed it down so much. I was in that room for 20 hours. Yeah, until about 1:30 the next day. And here's where the story gets interesting. Because there's a lot of humanity, a lot of mixed, ways of thinking, a lot of different belief systems, a lot of different, religious sort of slants in various people. And so you've got quite a variety of humanoids in there, some extremely needing lots of help, on drugs or whatever. Just they've lost themselves, and others who are just in for this one woman next to me had sprayed or broken her wrist or cracked a bone or something. And there was another woman who, couldn't eat. She couldn't eat, and had her energy. She was young, college student. So anyway, it was an education on a slice of humanity here in Edmonton, Alberta. So what I chose to do as the hours proceeded was to become a lighthouse, become a beacon of God's light, of pure, consciousness. And I knew that this would rescue me from impatience, blame, shame, and judgment. So I did that for pretty much the 20 hours I was in the room. And I was in the middle of the room. This is what gave me the idea. As I was looking around the room, I realized I was in the middle of the room. And it was a great place to be a beacon of consciousness. So I closed my eyes and I just opened my crown chakra, just like I do with you guys. And I breathed golden white light into myself, expanded my aura, and I kept expanding the aura to include everyone in the room, all the way from wall to wall. And the time seemed to pass pretty quickly, only because I wasn't really uncomfortable. There's no pain in my leg unless I tried to stand. So I had this wheelchair that I had to get out of because the seat is like wood, and there's no way, with the challenge being in my glutes and the sit bone area. Am I going to sit on wood for 20 hours? So I would get out of the wheelchair and I would sit in the padded seats, which had foam of maybe 1.5 inches. And so they kept coming and stealing my wheelchair because they were short of the wheelchairs. So finally I gave up on having a wheelchair handy because the time just kept going on and on and on. And I heard one story as they were taking someone in. There was a man who was very upset that it took 18 hours for his daughter to get service. And that just kind of like echoed. And I went, oh, interesting. this is why I had to give up the idea of forward movement into the complex to get treated. Now, finally, they call my name 20 hours in, and and they find me a wheelchair. And so we go in. There's about 5 or 6 of us. They called our names. And they take us into another waiting room. Yeah, the sign said X-ray waiting, but it's an open room. There's no door. There's an office in there with a bunch of technicians looking at computers. So another hour, almost an hour, in the second room. So now we're 21 hours. And then finally, the doctor, they have a bed, finally, is what happened. And because I kind of had a feeling that with all the incoming gurneys over the night, all the beds would be filled. I was correct. And the walk-ins that they did take in, they were sleeping through the night. So here it is now in the approaching middle of the afternoon again on the next day. And finally some beds are being freed up. So I went in to the cubicle with the curtains, just like in the TV shows. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And now I'm deciding, okay, I'm just going to watch a movie. And I did that actually through the night. I watched 3 movies on my phone to the point where I had to keep recharging it. And I had someone sitting nearby to go find a plug for me because I couldn't walk without a wheelchair. And so I went back to my movie, waiting for the doctor in the cubicle. And so he finally comes in. I pause the movie, and he starts a questionnaire. He's got a computer, on a Rolodesk, and he's asking me all these questions, and I'm answering them. And it feels like, oh, finally, I'm getting some service. Wow, this is starting to feel better. And then, boom, there's an announcement over the speakers from the front desk that there's another gurney. And the doctor says, oh, I'll be back. He takes his computer table and out through the curtain and disappears into the again. I go back to watching my movie. I felt so rude. It felt like, wow. And I can understand. See, this is the thing. I'm not projecting. I'm observing, which is what I'm teaching everyone. Just to observe what's happening from a place of interest and wonder. Innocent perception is what I was practicing the whole time. And so I thought, well, of course, someone comes in on a gurney. They need more help than I do in this moment. And I wondered if he was a surgeon, if he would not come back, and blah, blah, blah. I went back to my movie. So he comes in about 20 minutes later, apologizes, and finishes the interview, the questionnaire. And then things really started to move. At that point, they took me back to the second waiting room, which is internal. And within 5 minutes or so, someone came to get me for x-rays. And I went into x-ray, and she did her duty, and then she came back. And then someone came to get me for ultrasound. And so they took me into another building, and I came back. And then a PT showed up. And this all happened in 1 hour. Bam, 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 bam. And the PT is giving me all these exercises to do and blah, blah, blah. And then he left. So I asked the woman at the desk, okay, so why am I waiting here now if everything's been done? Oh, we're waiting for some of the tests to come back. I says, look, lady, I got to get home. I haven't slept in since Monday. Here it is Wednesday. Can I just please be released? And she said, well, the doctor has to release you. So I said, could you call him, please? So he came, and he says, well, it'd be good if you stayed because we could, look at the tests and maybe prescribe some more drugs, or whatever. And I said, Doc, I don't do pharmaceuticals. Sorry, no offense, but it's just not something I do. So please just let me go. And he signed the paper and let me go. Now, to my amazement at this point, this is about 23 hours now, I was able to get up out of the wheelchair and walk out of the building. There was no pain. There was a little bit of a limp, but the pain was gone and my posture was better. And I was surprised, yet, I'm one that is used to miracles. And I love allowing them to enter into my experience. So that was amazing. I walked outside and waited for the Uber to come get me. And I walked home after the Uber from the car and walked up and down the stairs to do my things in the house. And there's a couple of things that played into this besides what appears. And that's kind of what I wanted to share with you, because I've had experiences today with some other people in the last couple of days